Okay, so how could you change or improve? Sometimes that's all that it takes. And I could tell you more stories, but I won't. Now, packaging is the next P. And this is what does the product look like? So we say, how does your product or service look like to your customers? How much of a customer's initial sensory impression is visual? Quick question, cheap question. Answer, 95%. 95%. Remember the meeting, your husband or your wife or boyfriend or girlfriend, how much of the first impression was visual? Almost all of it. You saw them across a crowded room. You've been married for 35 years. I mean, your head swung, bang, boing, the eyes locked, and you've been married forever. So visual is very important. People look at a product or a service of any kind, and the first visual impact triggers all the emotions, like a cascade of emotions of desire and curiosity and interest and everything else. So how does your product or service look to your customers? Sometimes people don't pay much attention to it. And who are the very worst? Men. What a bunch of nitwits they are. I tell my business audiences, you run every idea for the appearance of a product or service past the woman in your life. Ask them for their opinion. Women are the best shoppers in the world. They can tell you instantly if it's going to be a hit or not. And you can have a fabulous product inside the box, but they won't touch it. Or your product can look beautiful, so they say, geez, what's that? What is that? What's in there? So, number 2 is, what visual impression do you make? What do people say about you after you leave, after they have seen the impression? 3, how could you improve your appearance? How could you make it more attractive? You remember, Apple has the highest grossing retail stores in the history of the world. They're now up to about $5,600 to $5,800 per square foot in their stores. They sell more than the second rated, which is Lululemon. Lululemon sells about $3,800, $4,000 per square foot. And the third is Tiffany's, the jewelry store in downtown New York. And people walk in there and spend hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars to buy those products because they are so attractive. And so, therefore, how could you improve your appearance? So people just take one look at it and say, I don't even know what it is, but if it's as good as it looks, I want it, and I want it now. And people go into, has anybody here shopped at an Apple store? The highest turnover per square foot of any store in the history of the world. Why? People come in, and there's no effort to sell you. You come in and you walk around and you look at the lights and you look at the thing. There's something absolutely irresistible about the way that an Apple store is laid out. So number 4 is packaging. Could you improve the look of your packaging? Could you improve the look of your offices? I've worked with companies that have been started by young business people, and to save money at the beginning, because they didn't have any, they brought in old furniture or used furniture and used carpets and things like that. And I've instructed them to make your office look beautiful. So people walk in and they say, this is a beautiful office. And their sales went up 1,000%. They could not believe the appearance. And it was always because the man saying, oh, our products are so good, it doesn't matter what they look like. Ha! All right, and then the staff. What do the staff look like? You'll find in your best stores, the staff look great. They're well-dressed, they're well-coiffed, they're friendly, they're charming, and your sales materials. The rule is this, yours must be equal to or better than your competitors, or you cannot compete. You have to get out of the business. So what you do is you go and you shop your competitors. Take pictures, look around, hold them up, and say, how does my stuff compare with theirs in terms of appearance? And it must look equal to or better than the best you've got, or you have to go back to the drawing boards. It's too important. People judge a book by the way it looks from the outside. They judge a package, they judge the contents of a package by the packaging. Sometimes just changing the external appearance will change your business dramatically. So we say positioning. Now positioning is the 6th. Positioning is how are you talked about and thought about by your customers? How are you talked about and thought about by your customers? Is what words do you own in your customer's mind? You know what the most powerful word in dealing with customers, with how people think about you, is the word nice. Nice is the most powerful word in marketing. They are really nice people. That is a really nice company. They have really nice staffs, waiters, service people. I worked with one of the biggest companies in Europe, and they spent an enormous amount of money to build up their customer business, and they found one of the greatest weaknesses they had is the service people were service people. They're dressed in crummy clothes, and they had, sweaty collars and scuffy shoes, and they'd go on service calls, which were required because these were biomedical electronic products. And when it came time to renew the contracts, which were multi-million-dollar contracts, they would buy from a competitor. And so they went there. When they heard the competitor was coming in, the competitor looked great. Well-dressed, nice, attractive, good grooming, male, female, treated the existing customer like a really valuable customer, like they're going to a special jewelry store. And they went, and they did work on this, they trained them all over the world, is they began to teach their customer service people to treat their customers like they were very, very valuable. And so they began to treat them, and they began to get renewal. And these renewal orders were average of $3 million. And it's still today one of the most successful biomedical electronic companies selling equipment into doctors' offices and hospitals in the world. They couldn't believe the difference it made in terms of the appearance. And so people would say these were great people, even if they were no different than they were before. Number 3, what words would it be helpful for you to own? What words would it be helpful? And you can ask your customers and they'll tell you. And 4, how can you get your customers to think of you in this way? How can you get your customers to think of you in this way? What can you say? What can you do before the sale? What can you do after the sale? You know what one of the most important things in business is customer retention. Customer retention costs 1/5 to 1/10 of new customer development. And so now, I'm working in this area, now you're finding that the very best companies are focusing on retention. My program is called Customers for Life. As once a customer has bought from you, they will never buy from anyone else. And it doesn't matter the price or anything else. They just literally, you own them. And that increases the sales by about 500%, rather than trying to go out and advertise and get new customers from the beginning. Number is people. And this is number 7. Customers are 100% emotional. So therefore, how they feel determines whether they buy and whether they buy again. How they feel determines their decisions. Every customer contact must be warm and positive and friendly. The customer must be happy when they're doing business with you. They must be happy when they come in and happy when they call you and happy when they leave. And you never have anybody who has any contact with the customers who doesn't make those customers feel happy. And you have to think about that. So you'll see, have you ever noticed, by the way, the big grown-up companies, when you phone up, there will be a voice that comes on and said, this phone call may be recorded for quality control. You heard that? As same companies, I don't do that, but the companies that do that have people, professionals, who listen in on every word. And then they'll replay and they'll talk it back to the salespeople, so the salespeople understand how important it is that you take really good care of your customers, speaking to them, interacting with them. Dress is one of the most important things. What is the biggest residential real estate company in the world?
Keller Williams.
Is Keller Williams the biggest now?
They beat Remax.
They beat Remax.
Yeah.
Well, no, but that's fairly recent. For
2 or 3 years.
Yeah, for decades, Remax, not Remax, but Realty.
Executives.
Yeah. And the first thing they did when they came up with this idea of having a residential real estate company franchise is they agreed upon a color that every single real estate person in the organization could wear, and they agreed on gold. Because it was Century 21. That was the world's leader. And it was Century 21, and they agreed on gold because gold was a color that went with all accoutrements, all of the skirts, dresses, blouses, everything else. And everybody knew, and pretty soon they made that person, that's the Century 21 person. And then they backed them up with training and support and everything else. It's a very, very big deal. And you'll find that your very best companies, going back to IBM in 1928, are adamant about dress and appearance. When the person looks at them, they say, boy, they look great. They look professional. And so small differences like this can make an enormous difference. It's highly questionable If Remax could have been a successful franchise if they let everybody wear whatever they damn well pleased when they met with customers. If there was no consistency of signage, no consistency of clothes, and so on. It's that consistency over time that made them so popular. By the way, sometimes I ask this question. I'll see, I may even have it here, but here, we want to talk about the Parthenon principle. I've been told to delete this because it's not as important as other things, but it basically says that the Parthenon principle, if you think of the Parthenon in Athens, where it has pillars. So imagine that Parthenon has 7 pillars, which are the 7 keys to the marketing mix, and that if you increase one or improve 10% in each one of those areas over the course of a year, by simply becoming 10% better in that area, the cumulative effect compounds. It's 10% times 10% times 10%, and over the course of a year, if you get just a tiny bit better, it's called the law of incremental improvement. The Japanese call it the Kaizen principle. You become a little bit better in each area because every month you sit down with a gang and you say, how could we improve this area this month? All right? And let's look at the different things that we could do to be more attractive. You bring in your customers and you sit your customers down and you buy them a very nice lunch, or afterwards you take them out to a nice dinner and you walk them through the 7 and say, how could we make these better so that you like them more? And they will tell you. They'll be honored. They'll be honored and surprised that you would ask them for their opinion. And then what you do is you incorporate their suggestions into making each one of these a little tiny bit better. And the cumulative effect over the course of a year would be 10% per month would be a total of 1.94. So if you took this and you applied it to each part of your business would double every 12 months. And I can tell you this, if you just simply improved your promotion, your business will double and triple without a single improvement anywhere else. So small incremental changes in each of these 7 areas can lead to enormous changes in your business with almost no addition in expense. Here's something to think about, the Parthenon principle. How can we double the sales and profitability of our business? Which brings us to, my dear friend, session 4. And session 4 is attract and keep great people. Now, let me make sure here that I don't want to get ahead or behind myself. And as Howard was saying, as other people were saying, the quality of the people you attract is going to be the most important factor in your business, more than anything else. That's what we say here. And you can have the best products and services in the world, but if they're served by jerks, you're not going to be successful. It's how people feel. And the most important thing, whether it's here or not, I have to repeat it. I would often ask sales, and I've done seminars here for as many as, here in Houston, for many as 10,000 people. And I'd ask the question, what is the most important single word in sales success? The word that more than anything else determines your income, the size of your house, the car you drive, the amount of money you have in the bank, the schools that your kids go to, where you go on vacations, and everything that affects your career. What's the most important single word of all?
Yes.
What did you say?
Yes.
No, the most important single word is credibility. And yes, of course, which comes after credibility. Credibility means that I absolutely trust and believe you. Like the story I told you before about the 2 studies, I absolutely trust and believe you. And so therefore, everything you do, and my rule is everything counts. Everything increases your trust or lowers your trust. Nothing is neutral. When you're talking to people about things that affect them emotionally, everything is based on emotions, based on trust. So therefore, everything helps or hurts. Everything adds up or takes away. Everything moves you toward the sale or moves you away from it. So all of these factors, any one of them, especially external appearance, but any one of them can get you a sale or lose you a sale. Really important. So, and so therefore, when you look good, your credibility goes up. When you're prepared, your credibility goes up. When you have a standardized sales presentation, your credibility goes up. So you're always looking for ways to increase the amount that people like and trust you. And likability gets you in the door, and trust gets you the sale. People cannot buy from you until they're convinced that you are their friend and acting in their best interest. Even if they like and want the product and it's well priced, they can't buy from you. They have to emotionally feel that they can trust you absolutely. Then they can say yes. So, Attract and keep great people. Let's talk about this. We'll come back to sales. Your success in business will be determined by the people who work for you more than any other factor. And just exactly what Howard was saying earlier, more than any other factor. So the question is, remember, all work is done by teams. It's done by groups of people. It's not done by individuals. The first time you hire anyone to help you is when you form your first team. And your first team can just be one more person. In my coaching program, and this may be of value to you, but it was a real shocker for me as I began to do all my research to put together my coaching program, which generated millions of dollars, by the way, I'm happy to say, is that the first thing you need to get is an assistant. If you're in business and you're running your own business, one of the great reasons that companies fail is they try to do too many small things. They work on this and they work on that and they work on this and they work on that, and it's too much. So the first thing we encourage our people to do is hire an assistant. The first thing I did when I started my business many years ago is I hired a part-time assistant. I shared an office with two other young guys who had service organizations, and we hired a secretary, and her name was Monica. Still remember Monica. And Monica would take care of all the paperwork. Phone calls, get back to them right away, package things up, mailing, everything. And so now I was free to spend all the rest of my time developing business. And I learned later, as I trained each of my people, first thing you do, if you don't have an assistant now, hire an assistant. Because no matter what kind of a company you have, your hourly rate, your hourly income is vastly more than a secretary. And so they would get a secretary, a receptionist, and they'd spend the rest of their time developing business and making sales. And their income would double. One of my friends is a real estate agent, and she's very cheap, very careful with money. And I convinced her, I persuaded her to get an assistant. So she got a part-time assistant. And the part-time assistant went to work for her and took care of all the little stuff, all the mailing, all the phone calls, and all the packages, and all the everything. And she could have twice as much time to make calls and get listings and make home presentations. And her sales jumped. And so she made the assistant a full-time assistant, and the sales went up. And so she made the assistant got the assistant get a second assistant. By the time the year had passed, she'd gone from earning about $60,000 a year. She was earning $350,000 a year. She had 3.5 people on her staff who were taking care of all the little details, and she only did two things. She took listings. All the girls took care of all the phone calls and everything else. She'd go out personally and make listing presentations, and she would make presentations. And all the paperwork and everything else was done by these three people. She went from $50,000 to $350,000 in gross income, and she kept about $250,000 herself. And so I meant this, I wrote this in my notes here, that you've got to stop doing little things. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I always talk about determining your hourly rate. How much do you earn per hour? How much do you want to earn per hour? And then what you do is you hire anyone who can do those jobs for less than your desired rate. You want to earn $200,000 a year, that means you want to earn $100 an hour. If you want to earn $100 an hour, don't do it yourself if you can pay someone else to do it for $25 an hour or $15 an hour. Don't make coffee, don't make photocopies, don't put stuff in packages or take it to the mailbox. Don't do anything. Is hire someone to do it. Your job is not to do it, but to get it done. Your job is not to do these things, but to see that somebody else does them at a lower rate. And everybody who ever uses this, entrepreneurs, everybody who ever gets an assistant is just astonished at how fast their income goes up and how much they simplify their life. That's why I could guarantee, one of the ways I could guarantee that if you follow my ideas, of which this was one of 72 ideas that I taught over a course of 4 days, over a course of 12 months, everybody doubled their income and doubled their time off. They had much more time to spend with their family and with their kids. They had much more time to take time off on the weekends and so on. So you can do the same thing. People say, well, I have to do this because it's so important. If it can be done, the rule is the 70% rule. If it can be done 70% as well by someone else, delegate it. Get it off your plate. Get somebody else to do it so that you have more free time to do things that pay much more. So number two, the manager's work is the work of the team. So everything that the team does is the manager's work. The manager is like the manager of a sporting team. Their job is not to go onto the field and run around and kick the ball and shout at people. Their job is to get someone else to do it, and then to give them regular feedback to make sure that they're doing it the very best way possible. So constantly see yourself as a coach, basically running the team on the field, and not as a player who has to run on the field and do it themselves. So I don't particularly like the past president. But aside from that, he did say one thing which I thought was really cute. When somebody asked him a question about something on one of the interviews, he said, that's way above my day rate. He was asking something about what the president should do here and there. And so he said, that's way above my day rate, which was his way of not answering the question. And I thought, that's really interesting, is you shouldn't do anything that's above your day rate. If your day rate is $50 or $100 or $200 an hour, you should not do it or even think about it. So when people say, would you do this for me or do that for me? I say, I'm sorry, that's way below my day rate. I just don't do those things. I am management, not labor. Is I do the management stuff, I don't do the labor stuff. And you need to do the same thing as well. In fact, one of the most brilliant things you can do, is not even in here, is just become really good at delegation. Become really good at delegation. One of the most important of all skills for business people. Number three is success requires excellent performance of each team member. My friend Wayne, not Wayne, but Louise Hayes. Louise Hayes wrote a book many years ago, and it was the psychological causes of physical illnesses. I'm trying to think of what the name was. What was her name? But it was a really, really great book. It was a bestseller. She opened up a publishing company. She made an enormous amount of money. She lives not far from me. And in the book, she had a lot of interesting observations. But in the opening, she had a little essay, and she said, the greatest problem that people have in our society is the feeling that I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not as good as others. Others are better than me. Others do things better than me. Others are more intelligent than me. Others are more creative than me. Others are better than me. I'm not good enough. And as I studied this in psychology, I found that, whoa, this is one of the biggest single problems that human beings have. You, me, everybody, is we compare ourselves unfavorably to others, and we say, oh, I'm not good enough. So when we say you should hire and have a staff member, who are you to have somebody working for you? Your father or your mother never had an assistant. How do you think you should have an? So in other words, people will shut you down, and you say, well, I'm not good enough to have an assistant. I'm not good enough to delegate. If this needs to be done, I should do it myself, and so on. And so you have to get over that, because the answer is you are good enough. You are as good or better, as I said, than anybody you'll ever meet. And you do not have to explain for hiring an assistant. One of the first things I did when I turned the corner from being broke to not broke is I bought my wife a housekeeper. I said, if I'm going to be successful, then you're going to be successful. If I am going to hire out accounting and secretarial work, then by gum, we're going to hire out homework, and you're not going to clean your own houses anymore. And she said, but she came from a poor home. She came from, father had a 4th grade education. And she said, yes, but that's the responsibility of the mother and everything else. I've heard this so many times from so many different women, especially. And I said, no, well, the fact is that you now deserve a housekeeper. So she got a housekeeper. And when we had our first child, she got a nanny. I said, your family is doing too well for you to be doing work that could be done by somebody else at a lower day rate. And she said, okay. And I came home one day and all my lawns were mowed and cut. All the grass was cut. Now, everybody knows that that's a man's job. Men mow the lawn, not women. And she said, well, if I can't do the housework, you can't mow the lawn anymore. And I said, that's ridiculous. So I did what all good men do. I pouted. I went to my room and I pouted and I pouted. And I finally came back and said, you're absolutely right. And she said, yes, I'm right, because if you mow the lawn, it takes 2 hours on a Saturday afternoon. And by the time you've mowed the lawn, you're tired. and you can't spend time with the kids, and you can't spend time with me, and then you're dirty, you have to take a shower, and you can hire the boy down the street to mow the lawn for $5 an hour. No more lawn mowing for you. And I said, okay, I agree. And that week, she gave my lawnmower away. I still remember, I came home and I go, I'll see if I could sneak out and cut my grass. And I went, and the lawnmower was gone. She said, I gave it away because I knew you would give in. And so I never mowed a lawn again. She hired me a gardener. So then she needed somebody to take care of the plants. I hired her, somebody to take care of the plants. Anyway, the reason why I say this is because she felt, coming from a poor family, she wasn't good enough to have staff that did these things. That just the sort of thing you're supposed to do when you grow up and have your own household. But the fact is that you are good enough. And one of the smartest things you can do is get rid of all this little stuff. Delegate it, outsource it, cancel it, do anything so that you can focus on just those 2 or 3 things you do in your business that make all the difference in your standard of living. And so one of the things that I found is the key to your success is to determine those 3 things and then focus on getting better and better at each of those 3 things. So you can do it better and better at less and less time, far higher quality of work, and spend more time with your family. Never wash dishes or laundry again, unless you're poor, and you're not poor. You used to be poor. Barbara and I go out for dinner. I don't know about you. When I was growing up, my parents always said, finish your meal, finish your dinner, finish the food. You didn't finish that. So you grow up with this throughout your life, and I finally realized I don't have to finish everything. You go out for dinner, I don't have to finish anything. She said, yes, but look at this. I said, Barbara, I said, we're not poor anymore. She said, what? We're not poor anymore. We don't have to finish our dinner. And that became the guiding influence in our life. From then on, if we hadn't finished it, we're not going to sit there and make ourselves sick by stuffing it in. Because we're not poor anymore. So I want you to say that for the rest of your life. I'm not poor anymore. You tell your spouse, I'm not poor anymore. I don't have to finish my dinner. If I've had enough to eat, I can stop. But what about the starving children in Korea? And well, yes, well, let them starve. But you're not poor anymore. And so what you do is you suit at least yourself anyway. So number 4 is the best businesses have the best people. The best businesses have the best people. And your job is to have the best people as long as it takes. My friend Harvey McKay, who you may remember, Harvey's been a friend of mine for 3 decades. And Harvey wanted to hire a salesman for his company. He had an envelope company, and he became very wealthy with his envelope company. He needed to hire a salesman. So what he did is he began advertising and interviewing. And he interviewed 25 salespeople and could not find one that was good enough. But he said, I was determined I was only going to hire someone who was good and who had the potential to be excellent. And he said, I would have interviewed 50 or 75 or 100. But on the 28th salesman, he found an absolutely outstanding guy to sell envelopes to industrial companies. And that guy stayed with him for the rest of his career. He said it was worth all of the wait. He was not going to put off. He was not going to settle for poor quality. He was going to demand to get a good person. So what am I telling you? Is if you have people who are not good people, apply the zero-based thinking method to them. Would you hire this person back again? Here's a wonderful way of putting it. I love it when they say, if this person came in and said, I'm thinking about quitting, would you argue with them? Oh, so sorry to hear that. Well, the fact is, insist on only getting good people. Here's another factor, and this is important, is that because you're a small company, and I'm assuming that most of you are, because you're a small company, you cannot afford to hire completely green people and train them from the ground up. You have to get people who have already earned their spurs, people who are already good at what they do, people who are already recognized as pretty good. They don't have to be world leaders, but they cannot be so bad that you're tearing your hair out. You only hire good people, and then you help them to become better. That's really important. And by the way, IBM found that you're spending money by sending people out to sales training gives you a 3 to 5 times return on investment greater than if you have internal training. And so therefore, don't be afraid to send people out. I've had so many people come to my seminars all over the country that have been sent from the other side of the country. And I only learned later that the research shows that this is very good use of funds. is to send people, even if you have to put them on a plane, to go and be trained by experts. Because they can learn more in one day at a sales training program than you could teach them in 6 months working away within your own company. But you should not settle for anything less than good people. Now, I was talking to a group in Boise, Idaho last week, and I threw this out to them, and they popped all their balloons, figuratively speaking. And what I said was this, and it's something that I learned, is that if you settle for less than excellent performance, then you will get mediocrity. If you do not make a decision to hire and to maintain and train the best people, automatically you get mediocre people. The 80-20 rule pervades worldwide. If you accept poor performance from yourself, if you do not, let me rephrase it, if you do not set a high standard and resolve to be the best in your field, you automatically become mediocre. You do not have to make any effort to be mediocre. Mediocre is average. Mediocre is the default position of the human being. That's why there are so many mediocre people. To become excellent at what you do, you really have to work hard for a long time, but you have to do nothing to be mediocre. And it's the same thing with your staff. If you don't hire people who want to be really excellent and give them every encouragement, books, tapes, programs, and so on, they will automatically become mediocre. No effort is required. So therefore, set high standards. We expect each person in our business to be really, really good at what they do and to be dedicated to continually becoming better. How do you feel about that? And what they have found, and Howard talked about this, what they have found is the very best people want to be good. They want to work later. They want to come in later. They want to invest time in themselves. They'll invest time on weekends and evenings in themselves without payment because they want to be excellent and they love a company that's dedicated to helping them to become good at what they do. One of the greatest motivations of all in business is knowing that your company is helping you to become really, really good. And when you become really, really good, what will happen? You'll earn more money and more respect and more esteem, and you'll feel happier about yourself. And so this is what good companies do. And they go home and they say, this company's committed to helping me to become really good. And if I become really good, they're going to pay me even more. So just something to think about. If you want to hire good people go where the standards are high. That's an old Jim Rohn line. They go where the standards are tough, where it's really hard to get the job and it's hard to keep it. They love that.